Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to season 2 of Conversations in Pop Culture, where I have with me Isaac Fox, who is the creator of Cremisi, and we're going to talk all about that. So, welcome to the show because I'm excited.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Yeah, now there's a lot going on with Cremisi, including a Kickstarter that is currently going on, and I know that it's the rebirth, and there's a lot of history with this comic book as there's four other issues. I think there was at least three or four other Kickstarters that pertain to this. So I think the best place to start is what is Cremisi and what is some of the history behind it so that people who are listening in for the first time or hearing about it for the first time know what this comic's history is about before we dive into a little bit more of it.
Yeah. So Cremisi is it's kind of my passion project, really. It's the first one I ever did, and I made the mistake. Don't, if you're a creator, don't do this. Don't do your passion project first. Don't do that. That's a terrible idea. But I made that mistake. So I started with it and I stuck with it. Started it years ago and started writing it when I was like in college, and it was terrible. And then I learned how to write, and then it got better. So went through that. It's a science fantasy space western focusing on an alcoholic main character and how he inadvertently ends up saving the universe. It deals a lot with heavy ideas of PTSD, depression, anxiety, issues like that. And part of my goal with that is to show characters going through those and to help a reader see that if you are suffering from those things, it doesn't define you and they can be defeated. Myself being someone who suffers from PTSD is a very unpleasant thing to have. And people out there who have it, I know that it seems like there's no help for it. There's no way to get away from it. Escapism does offer a little bit of help with that, and hopefully through my work I can help people achieve that. Cremisi, as you said, has been around before. When we first launched it, we did issues 1 and 2 as a special combination book, so they were both together. Since then, we did issue 3 on Kickstarter and issue 4 last year. Issue 4 was when I during issue 4 and right before that, the entire company, the company that we have here, Astral Ticket, it's over that side, Astral Ticket Comics, we restructured, revamped, and redid everything. We kind of disappeared for a little while before that. Part of that is because I got an agent. I got in with the Art Germ crew, and I learned so much more from those guys than what I'd been doing. Everything I'd been doing up to that point was just like a child trying to color in a coloring book. It worked, but it wasn't as fancy as it could be. And after getting with them, I kind of got into the big boy shoes and learned where I needed to be, what I needed to do, and all those things. So what it is we got to that restructure. We said, okay, well, let's put issue 1 out as a solo book and test what all this new stuff is that we know how to do. And the results from that have been astronomical compared to what we were doing. We were doing $3,000–4,000 Kickstarters, and we still have 13 days to go, and we're at, I think, like almost 1,100 or 11,000. I'm sorry. Ugh. So
Get your
everything.
numbers right. You got to look professional. Come on.
It's still early morning for me. So we get that done. And luckily, Cremisi was a great stepping stone. We have other new books coming out this year. I say we, it's really just me. All these books coming out this year. I've got another book that takes place within the Cremisi universe. That one is another more serious kind of book. And then we've also got a book coming out later this year called Suck You Busted. That one is not serious, and that one is a lot more catering to what I have found the fans want, which is etchy and sexiness and funniness. So we're definitely expanding in a couple different areas. We're also working on, there will be a naughty Hot Springs edition coming out probably next year, which will be a bunch of characters from across my universes going to a hot spring. Because my work, I know most comic book creators in America, they come from old school days of reading back in the Hulk and Batman, which is great. So I read those as a kid too, and I grew up watching the animated series for Batman and Justice League, and they're all amazing. They inspired me, and my favorite comic book series ever is still Red Lantern. Controversial probably, but I love it. But for me, a lot of my influence really came from anime and manga. When it was the 90s era, when we got Toonami, and Tom would come on and give these really inspirational little videos to help lift you up and get you through things. And then they would show Outlaw Star and Trigun and Cowboy Bebop and Gundam Wing and all these amazing shows. And as a kid, I thought, this is amazing. This is a real coherent I was used to Saturday morning cartoons at the time, so these had a real coherent story and character development and all these things. And I would sit there as a kid with a notepad and take notes on the story elements and how they were developing these characters and what made it interesting. And when an episode was boring to me or I didn't like an episode, I would write down why didn't I? Why does this episode not work compared to this one? And I kind of decided I want to do that. I want to do what they do. So a lot of my work, all of my work really has more of a manga influence than the comic one, but we still go with American format of left to right and still have marketing.
Let's talk about this, because this is my wheelhouse. I'm a big anime fan. My first podcast is called Pop Anime Comics. I'm a super otaku weeboo type of guy. I watch a lot of anime every year, over 500 episodes. I attend a lot of anime cons. And so I remember watching Trigun, Outlaw Star, Cowboy Bebop. Gundam Wing was one of the earlier ones for me. Mm-hmm. Probably should not have been watching any of that as a 7-year-old. So clearly, it's a little young for certain things. But
some people don't remember this, but when Toonami came out and started pushing anime, other networks tried to jump on the anime train too. But they didn't really understand what it was or how it worked or anything. It was still kind of new to a Western audience. So at like 10 o'clock at night, if you were a kid and your parents were asleep, HBO and those showed anime like Vampire Hunter D. There's one called Goku, which look that one up. It's really out there. It's not Dragon Ball Z. It's a different Goku altogether. All these different things. And I remember when I was like 14 years old and anime had just started showing up. And then I'm sitting there one night watching TV and Vampire Hunter D comes on. And within the course of 10 minutes, I see a girl's shirt get ripped off and a guy's head explode. And I went, as a 14-year-old boy, I went, this is amazing. Where can I get more of this? And that kind of started the whole journey through that era. I'm like, this is what I want to see more of. And then that came and I saw Justice League. And that's when I learned about really good character writing. That is still one of the greatest portrayals, in my opinion, of DC superheroes.
So to get back to Cremisi, because we could go on an anime Justice League Saturday morning cartoon for the next 5 hours and not run out.
Easily.
But Cremisi is definitely done very similar to Trigun, I get the sense. And it's done in manga style very as well, where it's that black and white, little bit of Sin City's thrown in there as well with the red and sort of highlighting certain things. One of my favorite books, obviously besides Sin City, is Polar, which does that very well. And it's almost that neo-noir type feel to it.
To me, I actually hadn't read Sin City prior to the beginning of this book. Actually, the book, the only red color thing was completely by accident. It was never part of the original plan. We had it.
Yeah. So
we started in full color. It was just too expensive. When I first started, I didn't have the funds. I didn't have the money. I didn't have a Kickstarter yet. I didn't have anything. I was just a guy working a really shitty job after college, which is common to a lot of guys. So I was stuck with that. And we just had a 3 a.m. meeting one night. We're like, all right, well, coloring is really expensive and time consuming. What can we do? And like, well, it's called Cremisi, right? Then that just means crimson. Why don't you just use red? I was like, well, I guess that makes sense, doesn't it? That should have been a really no-brainer. So we went with that. My other new books that are coming out, Pure Intent and Succubus, that are all full color. The only book now that won't be full color is Cremisi. It's going to stay true to its style, but everything else is going to be nice and shiny.
So what is that like? Because in many ways, it does lend itself to the manga style. You get those red highlights in there, which adds to it in a lot of ways. Also, black and white is cheaper, both the fact that you don't need a colorist and printing costs.
You would think that, but if you use one color, they still charge you full color. I found that out the hard way. You have one color, they still say, "Oh, what counts as full color?" Then you got to pay for that. Plus, if the colors are color, they'll still charge you for that.
But even still, to that idea, it is cheaper to do a black and white book by far than to do full color. There's no question about that. So you seem to sort of stumble into that by accident, but at the same time, it works in many ways because this, in my opinion, this is an American comic book that is manga styled. And so I love that because I love different. You know, I read a lot of comics every single year, and it's nice when you get something that says, oh, this is more anime, this is more that style. So what made you want to go down that road? Because you could have gone down 10 different roads with this same story.
So for me, it was a real personal decision. Like I mentioned, I do have PTSD. I came from a very violent childhood. I've got scars and stuff from it. And when I was a kid, I would get home from school and I would turn on Toonami. And for everybody always says Trigun. Outlaw Star is actually the one that really inspired Cremisi. But Trigun definitely has more visually in common. And I would sit down and watch those shows, and they really helped me get through a lot of that. And then Toonami came around, and they started doing the little 2-minute videos they would do with music to it and quotes from the anime. And Tom would talk to you about things that are going on in your life, voiced by Steve Bloom. And then one of them they had was the narrator of Outlaw Star, Mr. Hugh Blingslot, who I've met and got a signed copy of Outlaw Star from. That man is amazing. He would come over there, and one of the lines he had was "Believe in yourself, don't fear failure," which kind of really shaped a lot of things in my life. And I thought, like, well, that's really what inspired me and touched me as a kid to help me kind of get away and through some of the things I was going through. So that's when I got to the point where, like, okay, I'm gonna start writing and creating stuff. How do I do it? And I was like, I really want to go with that style because that's just what touched me growing up and made really stuck out to me. I know in a Western audience over here in the West, especially the older audience, they're really diehard comic book people, which is awesome. And I respect that. And I love that. I love that we see things like Lady Death kicking ass on Kickstarter. I absolutely love that. I love that we are seeing, though, in the comic world, we're starting to see a little bit of a blend of Eastern and Western style. We see guys like Art Germ, Stanley Lau. His stuff is a little bit of a blend, almost. Lyrics, who did this for me and some of our covers, her stuff, who is an Art Germ disciple, her stuff is a blend. Dan Mendoza, who's an amazing guy. You look at his kind of work, again, it's kind of a blend of a little bit of anime and Western. He's got all the anime, he's got anime and Cartoon Network tattoos all over him, so he gets it. You're seeing a lot of that now. Even Marvel came out with what Arrow and a couple of other books that were pure anime style.
Peach Momoko is the big one, who's very much in that. I don't know if Peach Momoko is part of your group per se, but that's kind of the fourth big one, I guess, is to throw that out there, where what she's doing also is massive. And obviously the Art Gem Ruby covers are a perfect example of that style. And they're arguably my favorite covers that Art Gem has done, because it is amazing what has happened with that. So, and do you feel, even going off of this, and we're going to start diving into the story a little bit more, but I am curious, where I feel that now anime is becoming more acceptable. I mean, Crunchyroll just got bought by Sony for $1.2 billion. It's not a joke anymore. Anime. No, it's not a small business either. I mean, we're talking a $10 billion business easy in the U.S.
So when I was in high school and I was growing up, like, it was really just kind of the geeky kids that watched anime. When I got to college, it was amazing. The year from the transition from senior in high school to freshman in college, everything changed. Because I did that, and one of my close friends, who was a scholarship running back for his amazing athletic ability, I ran into him again my sophomore year of college, and him and half the football team were sitting there watching anime. Like, when did y'all don't do this? This isn't y'all. This is us. Y'all guys watch sports and drink beer all day. We drink and watch. We drink whiskey and watch anime. No, it's the same crowd now. It's the same kind of people. I think Robot Chicken had a great skit on that, where they have the character called the Nerd, who's playing professional League of Legends, and they win. He goes, "Yeah, the nerds win." The other guys are like, "I dropped my football scholarship to do this instead." Like, yeah, it's not. It really, it's the geekdom fan base now over video games, anime, comics, manga, all of it isn't just a bunch of stereotypical fat, sweaty guys in a basement anymore. It's not that. I'm sure those guys exist. I work with one or two of them, but they know who they are. But there's a lot of people now that of all types that watch anime and stuff. Richie Branson, who is an amazing independent rapper. He's got some of the best raps about Gundam I've ever heard in my life. And half of his stuff is like just going back in the day and watching Gundam Wing on TV. And it's like, you see stuff like that back in the day, nobody would make a rap. Nobody would make a rap song about an anime. Maybe like some nerdy, like a kid for fun with his friends, but nobody would actually go into that. And now there's all kinds of amazing creative content built around it that's considered with the cool crowd now. And I think I would credit some of that. I hate to do this, but I would credit some of that to the success of the movie industry, where we've seen Marvel has helped out the geekdom a lot, in the sense that, well, Disney, in the sense that the Marvel films are so successful now that people who don't even read comic books are in love with it. When those movies started coming out, I would be teaching wherever, and I'd see people who I know don't read comics having like Thor mugs and all kinds of stuff. It's like, okay, this is becoming more fashionable, becoming a lot more common people to get into this kind of stuff. And it used to be like the shirt I'm wearing now, I would never walk like into a restaurant wearing an anime shirt. Like, no, you get labeled as a pervert half the time because it had this, especially back in the like the late 90s, it started getting this stigma as just being pornography, which it does exist, of course, but that's not what it's all about. And now that stigma has definitely died off a lot. People can look at it and go, wow, that's really good. I've had waiters will see the shirt now and ask you about the anime. Like, this was not the norm 10, 15 years ago, which is great. We should all be accepting of one of those interests. I mean, I work in the sports world, and so I work with people who have walls and walls of jerseys and bobbleheads and sports cards. That's not any different than having a bunch of anime stuff on your wall. It's the same kind of idea. We're the same people, and the more we work together, the better things are going to be.
And we're starting to see sports people becoming very wealthy as well due to a lot of things. The card entire industry is off the charts. I mean, with the addition of Otis and Rowley coming in and $150 million plus of private equity getting involved in cards and comics as well is super, super important. But enough about that, because I want to dive into the story. So obviously, parts that you missed that I want to give everybody is that an event happened with this mythical creature called, I believe, Cremisi.
Yep, that's the name of the what we believe is the villain so far.
I call it an event. People can call it a villain. That's however you want to call it. It's up to everybody else here. But obviously, this thing has killed hundreds, if not thousands, if not tens of thousands of people. Nobody knows what it is exactly, and nobody knows when it's coming back. And well, our main character sort of has a connection to it, might have survived it, might be a descendant of a survivor. We're not exactly sure. I don't want to sell it too short, but obviously this entire world is very much a Star Trek, Outlaw Star, Cowboy Bebop world in many ways. And so just to start there, talking about the story, what was that like to set up that world? Because while we're not totally exploring the world, we get that entire world where everything isn't horrible, everything isn't utopian, but everything is sort of okay with miniature conflicts existing in little spaces. But for the overall, the world is pretty stabilized for what it is.
Right. So I think a great example of universe building was the Mass Effect series, regardless of how you feel about the original ending. I played through those, and I loved how I felt like I lived in that universe. There's all kinds of like backdoor things you could look at if you wanted to. And then when I first started writing, I had to understand this. Nobody wants to sit there and read page after page of me explaining the relationship between two various governments. Nobody wants to read that. I'm being attacked by cats. Sorry. So they know I'm talking, and now they decided it's their time to talk. No one wants to read that, and I understand that. So I had to change a little bit. So what I had to do was find a way to tell the story of the universe they're in without giving you essentially a big data file to read. So in order to do that, there's little things in the background that help people out. But the universe of Cremisi is in the celestial year 3000, which is a different year than where we are now. I think we used before Common Era and after Common Era now, or however you want to use it. So it's kind of an alternate reality from our own. And this universe has plenty of aliens. Humans travel space normally. Most races do at this point. Everybody's pretty advanced. But the moment we step into the Cremisi universe, all the big wars have already happened. Everybody's kind of already had, for lack of a better term, their measuring contests. And everyone's kind of established their territory and be like, all right, well, it's just not, there's no sense in us going to full-blown war anymore. We'll just deal with the universe we can. So what we have is the four major powers in space are all kind of on good terms. Like, well, we'll make sure that the space that we control is safe, and we'll work with each other, but we're still independent and not really going to get involved. But most of the story, though, takes place in the area of the universe we call free space, which that term comes up a lot in Cremisi. And what free space is, it refers to the area of space that nobody officially controls. You could think of this if you want to, but go back in the, let's say, colonial time periods.
I'll give a better example. So right now, if you go 12 miles outside of any country on the ocean, on that 13th mile, you are in free water territory,
Exactly.
which means that whoever ship it is technically is the government. Now, that doesn't mean you're exempt from government positions, but what that means is that if you want to be on a ship that wants to allow drinking, that's perfectly legal. If a ship doesn't allow you to drink, they could put you in their quote unquote jail.
Yeah,
And technically speaking, so that's kind of what I think free space is. A good analogy as far as policy goes.
essentially. So you've got a lot of like small colonies out there, independent companies, people who want to go out there and establish different things. The story takes place 15 years after one of these small colonies was slaughtered by something that nobody's ever seen before, some being called Cremisi. They just know that one thing is responsible for killing a lot of people, and it wasn't with a chemical weapon, explosives. Everyone was literally hacked to death. So how one person could do that is beyond anyone's understanding in this universe at this time. Our main character does seem to know something about it, but he's not talking about it. He doesn't want to get into it. Issue 1 is just is really an introduction to the universe. We see the characters, some of the alien races. We start off in human space though, so we're right on the edge of space that mankind controls. Reason for that is I needed to give people something to ground a basis to. I feel like we as human beings we identify more with human beings, which is why and half the fantasy stories we read are successful, the main characters are usually a human, despite we have a plethora of other more interesting alien races or fantasy races to become involved with. But in Cremisi, the main character is an alien. He's not human. I thought if I could do that, I might be able to present a mentality and a culture that's different than what we know and make it more interesting. We do in issue 1 and 2, a human character does kind of take over a lead role. So one of my big pushes in Cremisi in general is I love strong female characters. I think they're amazing, and there's nothing sexier than a strong woman. So I wanted to push that as best I could. So in issue 1, we have Maria, who ends up being partnering kind of with our main character. And we don't see as much of her in issue 1, but we will coming up in issue 2 when that comes out, when I would do another rebirth on that. And then for other female characters, we have Alice, who's behind me right here. Camera angles.
So let's break this down a little bit more, and then we're going to go back to Shay, because I like this entire discussion of PTSD. I've definitely have more of a background in that topic and understanding it from a veteran perspective. But let's talk about Alice. So Alice is interesting, and in my opinion, one of the more interesting characters in all Cremisi, because Alice isn't real. And I say this very, very, very politely, where Alice is a virtual, holographic, modified, breaking the rules computer assistant type of sidekick that manages the ship. I would imagine Alice can manage finances, navigation, and Alice is also sort of a fox in many ways, kind of creature, sort of.
Remember the same alien, designed to appear like the same alien species our main character is. She is a computer program. Her name stands for a lovely, intelligent, computerized entity. We don't know what she really is yet. That'll come out later to what she actually is. Like every character in the story, every character in Cremisi is broken in some way. They're all dealing with something, and Alice is no exception to that rule. Even being a computer program, her purpose is, like you said, she's a supercomputer. She handles. You could, in reality, if you couldn't run a spaceship without a supercomputer. So she is the one that handles that life control, gravity, all those internal systems. She monitors all of that. She also acts as a babysitter for the main character, who definitely needs a babysitter. She also takes care of emotional responsibilities. We'll see later on. You'll see it in issue 5 coming out. It might be later this year. It might be early next year. Alice has psychiatric software. She can help you with mental problems and all that. The problem is that you have to be willing to listen, and our main character isn't. So his solution is to just pick up a bottle and go straight to that instead, which, as we'll see in issue 1, is something that disturbs Alice greatly. She's upset that she can't help him get over that. And alcoholism, I can tell from experience, is a rough road. You don't want to come out of it. It's one of those holes you get into, and it's dark and it's unpleasant, but for some reason you don't want to leave. And that's kind of what our main character is going through. Alice tries to help with that, but being a computer is only so much she can do.
And to even go further off of this, as I mentioned it already, Alice isn't your typical supercomputer in
Right.
this circumstance, where something beyond, if the main character Shay was on another ship, there wouldn't be another Alice to Alice's
No,
capability.
there's got a little bit of inspiration from Halo's Cortana, where the idea is you have these powerful computers that can have semi personalities, and they have some kind of representation. You see some of that in Iron Man's Jarvis. You would see that in Outlaw Star has Gilliam. These computers.
Ender's Game would have Jane.
Yep, you have these computers that kind of have a personality of their own, but they're just like a computer, like the computer I have sitting here. It's its own thing. This computer doesn't exist somewhere else. It's the only one there is. So it's the same kind of ideology where you have this computer program that has all these different memories stored into it and all your settings and all set up in there. It's just this is done in a little more aesthetically pleasing format. Also, the story of Cremisi is a dark one. It is very serious. And I was told for a long time, don't do a serious book as an independent. But it is a serious book. It does do a lot of dark, depressing themes. And Alice's purpose and part of that is to help bring us back from that. She's more cheery, bubbly. She does a lot of fan service kind of stuff. She likes to cosplay and jump around. So she kind of helps create a bit of light in what is otherwise a dark universe for our main character. That's really the purpose of Alice. Alice is also meant to kind of embody the anime idea in the book, whereas anime as a medium is extremely exaggerated. Comics do this too, of course, but I think anime pushes it a little bit further, where everything is exaggerated, especially coming back from the 90s where a guy would get a paper cut and then you could float the entire U.S. fleet and the amount of blood that would come out of it. So they used to do a lot of that, and that, especially nowadays with characters like their eyes pop out of their head and all that. Alice is meant to look like she looks and behave the way she does as a embodiment of that exaggeration. So everything she does is heavily exaggerated, including her appearance. So the super long hair, large bust, things like that.
And then Alice is in many ways a foil to Shay. And obviously Shay is dealing with a variety of issues. Shay's a bounty hunter. So right from the start, Shay's have a particular attitude to dealing with certain problems. Shay also has PTSD and is self-medicating with women and alcohol in many ways, and not wanting to deal with the problem, which is how people deal with problems. It's how people deal with depression. It's how people deal with PTSD. They deal with by finding joyous things that give them a temporary high, for lack of a better word, to put it bluntly. And at the same time, also, Shay is also sort of, I think, running away from, being an adult, in which he doesn't want to confront his problems, or he wants to keep them down. And obviously, this is something that is very, very dark, and it's very adult, and it's not tackled in comics per se, because it's not an easy story to sell. And so what was that like, even just building out and fleshing out this character? Because even though you have personal experiences and you deal with PTSD, sometimes those feelings are not translatable. Sometimes super really hard to express that and then even get that across in a character, because unless you've seen it, unless you understand PTSD or have even a glimpse of an idea of it, you really can't relate to it. So what was that entire process of saying, hey, how do I get this out there? Because when you're reading it, you get the idea that there's something there. I don't think anybody can fully understand unless you've lived it or you've seen it or you've experienced it. But even getting 10 to 20 or 30% of it is a big gain.
I wanted to create a main character who initially, he may change as time goes on. He might grow up. We don't know. I wanted to create a character who, for lack of a better term, was just kind of a piece of shit. He's not like irredeemably horrible, but it's clear that his decisions, his mentality, his way of looking at things are just crooked. Not to go as far as an anti-hero per se, but just to create someone who would always take the easy road, would cheat in a heartbeat if he could get away with it, and really looks out for number one more than anything else. you go see that in issue 1 and how Shay kind of approaches situations that would otherwise be most characters, especially if we go back to old westerns, the hero would always be the faster draw or would somehow heroically save the day. That's not going to be what you're going to see him do. You're going to see him be lazy. You're going to see him take the easy way out. You're going to see him cheat. You're going to see him lie. Do whatever it takes really to just put forth as little effort as possible while still achieving a positive result for himself in the long run. And that's counteracted by Maria, who we'll see in the first issue and in the second, who is the opposite of this in every possible way, where nobility, honor, dignity all matter to her. Or Shay's not really into that, doesn't really care. He's a poor example of his own species. He doesn't care about any of those kinds of things. He just wants to basically get paid and go do whatever the hell he else wants to do, which at this point in time, he doesn't have any objectives. He's just there.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. But he's an effective bounty hunter, and he's just trying to get the job done. And so to some degree, I can respect Shay, but clearly when you put him against Maria, who is a frontier force marshal, and obviously has this sense of law and justice attached to her, and she has her own objective, and Shay also has his objective with her, it becomes very interesting where this all goes between the two of them, and then Alice in the middle and Alice's perspective at the same time. And so what was that like, creating the perfect foil to Shay? Because Alice, and I might have already said that Alice is sort of a foil to Shay, but Alice, I guess, is more on the mental side of the foil, and I feel like Maria is actually physical and morality and ethically the foil to Shay.
Yeah, Alice is she's really just there for emotional support or to help with that kind of thing. I played with the idea of giving her kind of like a robot body, like what if she was a cyborg or something like that. And then I don't want to send the impression that Shay and Alice are sleeping together. So we're going to go ahead and just make it where she doesn't have a physical body for that reason. Cat. Maria, on the other hand, introduces a different way, and being she's there physically, she can do things with Shay, but that's not really her prerogative. She has her own objective that comes up in issue 1. We see what she's actually trying to do and what she's really after. Usually everybody in Cremisi kind of has their own objective, and I feel like that's my attempt to be more realistic with the writing of the characters. Nobody, to my knowledge, has ever stepped foot and go, I'm going to do something 100% for the greater good and not ever look for anything of my own goal along the way. Now, that means, when I say that, what I mean is your own goal might be just the satisfaction of having done something good. So regardless, you're doing something in a small way for yourself, even if your objective is to cure cancer. Like, okay, you cured cancer, but you're still, there's some satisfaction of it yourself. Noble. Sorry. And if I start talking, he freaks out because he doesn't know who I'm talking. I think I'm talking to him. So we see that a little bit in Cremisi, with every character kind of has their own objective, what they're really trying to accomplish. In Maria's case, she's got a personal grudge that she's going to be trying to solve. In Shay's case, he just wants to get paid so he can get out of there and go continue buying alcohol at this point. Alice's objective is probably the most selfless of anybody, but again, that she's kind of programmed to be that way. Her objective is to legitimately take care of Shay and the ship.
Yeah, and there's a lot of stuff that goes on. And there's a reason why I'm being very ambiguous and being very vague about this, because I have a feeling a bunch of people haven't read any of this, haven't read the original stuff, haven't read Rebirth.
Well, not enough people yet, not at all.
And so I want people to actually go back this project purposely. So that's what I'm being. And so to even go off of that, because obviously things go a certain direction, then they keep going down this direction, and choices are made, and well, we start figuring out what Cremisi is, what actually happened. While we sort of, in the way I interpret it, is that we have an overall mission, much like an Outlaw Star or Cowboy Bebop or a Trigun. But then we also have a bunch of side quests that sort of get us there, which is how a lot of anime is set up anyway. I mean, it's kind of like you have this big overall story and you got a bunch of side quests. And I gravitate towards these types of stories more than I don't. because I think that that's how comics should be set up. And I think that that's a failure of a lot of what DC has done, a lot of what Marvel has done, is that they don't have a 100-issue plan. They have a 25-run plan, and then they reboot it and get another number one. And it becomes complicated because while it's good work, at the same time, there's no overall arc of having these massive long runs. I think Scott Snyder and Greg Capullo's run on Batman, 50 issues, there's a lot of content there that was building up to certain points. And so I think that this is how comics should be written. I think that people are starting to figure out how to write comics, especially in the indies, that way.
Everybody's kind of got their own style, though, they want to tackle it. Some people are geniuses. I think Brian Polito is if you're going to follow anybody on Kickstarter and learn from anyone, that's the person to do it from. It's easy to say that, without a doubt, he is the absolute god of Kickstarter comics. His current run, I don't know what it was sitting. Last I saw it was sitting at over $200,000. I'm sure it's already way past that. 305, yeah, that sounds like him. He is the god of what he does, and he's got it. He has his next probably 2 years of Kickstarters planned out already. My agent has worked with them before, and I've had a chance to understand how their process works, which is one reason that we've gotten so much better, because it was like, well, here's what Brian does. You should do what he does and learn from him because his stuff works. So I said, okay, let's just start learning from him. And what if you brought one thing Brian does really well, like you were saying with the number ones, everything he does is a number one. You don't have to jump into a series 8 issues in. You can just get with a number one that will continue with the story and still be coherent, which is a genius in both his writing and his marketing plan. That's the thing that people, I think a lot of people don't think about. Like I talk to people about, I write comics, like, oh, wow, you spent all your time writing these cool stories and seeing art. I'm like, yeah, that's like 5% of what I do. I barely get to ever do any actual writing on the comics themselves. I get to do that for like maybe a week out of a month at the most, because 99% of your time is all the backdoor stuff that nobody sees. It's going over stuff with artists. It's in constant meetings with people to get things done. It's social media, which is the one I struggle with the most, is social media. Anyone who follows our social media probably knows that. I don't understand social media. I know my generation, like, we're the ones that got it. We got MySpace back in the day. Oh man, we all got social media. It never made sense to me, and it still doesn't at all. So I struggle to figure out what Instagram even was or how it's supposed to work. Twitter, I get. Twitter's, I understand, but the rest of them, it's definitely hard for me to figure out. If you can do that,
even to talk about all of this and Kickstarters, because one of the things is that the first 4 issues of Cremisi came out, and then I think you're going to have an issue 5. But then what made you prompt go back and do a rebirth, which is, I feel, sort of the retelling and an updated version of that first issue to some degree. And so what prompted that? Because there's a few things that come to mind. And I'm going to say it very bluntly, it's always good to recycle content. Whenever you can recycle any content, it's always good to throw it in there. Obviously, redoing it, updating it, rebuilding it out. We're seeing that a lot with video games now. Resident Evil 2 just got rebuilt. Resident Evil 3 just got rebuilt. They're going to be rebuilding Resident Evil 4. There's a reason why, and they make it better. If you play, I'm a big Resident Evil.
Why? The reason why is money. That's always the reason. They know that, especially like for our generation, especially, there's more Rugrats memorabilia available in a store right now than when I was a kid in the 90s. I can go and buy Rocko's Modern Life stuff now, Angry Beavers, stuff that was never on the shelves when that was coming out when I was a kid. And Capcom, a lot of companies have figured out that, oh, you like this as a kid when you were younger. What if we came back with it, repackaged it, put a shiny new graphic on it? What do you think now? And the answer is yes, we love it. Please give us more. We'll be hamsters in a cage sucking down that bottle as long as we can. And it works. But at the same time, it's not, while I will argue that their motivation for that is purely financial, it's great to have these things improved and see what we can get. In the case of Cremisi and Astral Ticket as the whole company, everything I did was reformed. Meeting the Art Germ crew, getting involved with those guys, learning from Polito, all these people. I looked at everything I was doing. I was like, wow, I did everything like a complete and total moron. How did I even get funded on those previous campaigns? I'm amazed anybody gave me their time of day. So I went back and looked at it and said, okay, well, let's update some stuff and let's put out issue 1 as a solo book for the first time ever, because it was only available originally with packaged issue 2 as a kind of special one-time deal. So let's go back and do that, and let's get some new covers for it and make it better. So now we have I have 3 covers by Lyrics. I've got Alan Kwa, who's officially works for Marvel now. I've got Makushima, who is he's an independent. He's damn good. I've got one of my leading artists, Mitsu, did covers for it. Sako Rush did a new cover for it. We have the Trigun homage, or 2 Trigun homages. We got one with Wolfwood and one with Vash. We went back and just did all this new stuff. I'm like, okay, we can really do a lot better now. We understand what people are looking for. And it took some time to sit down actually and I created a Discord, one thing I did, and got my fans in there and had a chance to actually have my representative talk to them and find out what do they like? What can we do to make this better for them? And that's what we went back and did. And that's really what I'm trying to do, is just create a better product so that the people who do read it, who do back it, who get involved, are happy with what they have. I'm not in the business of creating comics. I don't do that. I'm in the business of making you happy. That's what I do. So if I can bring happiness and joy to people in any small way, if you just get off your job and you got that 9-to-5 job and your boss is an asshole and everything, and it just sucks, and if you can come home and open up a comic and at least for 10 minutes get into another world and just be inspired by that, if I can do that for one person, I've done my job. So I'm going back. I went back at Cremisi issue 1 and said, okay, I can do that job better. And I think the people who read Cremisi and who follow me, they deserve better, and I'm going to give them better. And I continue that mentality right now, where I'm trying to improve everything I do to make it better for them. I want them to have the best thing I can possibly give them.
You're actually the second person in the last 10 days who've said something similar. And I think that is a trait that some people don't understand. And I think what it goes down to is that understanding that this is a business and understanding who your customer is. Because I think that's something that people forget. You know, there are only 2 schools of thoughts on this. It's either I know what's best for my customer and they might not know it yet, and I'm going to give them what is the best, or I'm actually going to listen to them and go down that route. So you either tell what your customer needs, such as an iPhone, because nobody 20 years ago knew what an iPhone was and knew they were going to need it, or you actually listen to what they want. And so I think that obviously listening to your customer is super important, especially in Kickstarter. But I am curious about something that's a little off topic on this. But when was book 1 and 2 launched of Cremisi? Because I actually don't know this.
You asking me a question I don't remember. I can find out.
I'll ask it a different way. So obviously Kickstarter changed, in my opinion, 2017, 2018. Was Cremisi launched before 2018, or was it launched the book 1 and 2 or after? Because there has been a split where now today's Kickstarter in 2021 is night and day to what Kickstarter was before 2017. And so that's also something that I think is a major factor right now with why people, and some people are relaunching their projects, is because the audience on Kickstarter is much larger. Kickstarter is a better platform. The comic community, especially the independent comic community, has become a hell of a lot tighter and a hell of a lot bigger. And so I think that's also something else where you go back 3-4 years ago, it wasn't even, maybe it was 50% of what it is today. And that's a big difference, because if there was 100,000 people in it, back 4 years ago, which would shock me, now there's 300,000 or 200,000, and that just is a massive exponential growth. And so I'm curious how you feel about all that, because I don't know how long you've been involved in all of this, but I've come in for about 5 years, give or take, into this entire sector, and I've noticed the massive change in the last 5 years.
I think part of it, it's definitely a positive trend. As much as I do, I think how can I word this? Let's take the comic book industry versus the anime or the manga industry for a little while here, which I don't want to pit them against one another. I think they both serve their purposes well and work well together.
Manga saved the comic industry.
We can look at, well, it's different because the manga audience is younger. The comic audience tend to be a little bit of the older crowd.
Without manga, graphic novels wouldn't have had a pathway into places like Borders Books, Barnes and Noble, Books a Million. Because right across or right next to it is the manga, and they are cousins, and one of them paved a path for the other. And just because of the business model of putting things into a bound copy made a massive difference. And while graphic novels did exist before manga started becoming big into the United States, they did not have the pathway, and manga proved the business model of that entire sector. Super interesting.
What I mean by this is if we look at how a manga story, because
yes.
With the exception of a handful of them, like One Piece, which will never die, manga, they're different. They're so different from one another. Not that comics aren't; they absolutely are. And this is where I think a company like Image, who does the indie guys, is so refreshing. Because if we can go into DC and Marvel, we can go into their stuff, and we know these characters, they're beloved characters, they're amazing characters. They've had their good runs, they've had their bad runs. And we can go into manga and anime and that genre and be completely surprised on what's going to happen, because there is no guarantee there's going to be a happy ending. There's no guarantee the main character sometimes is even going to survive. And I think that what that did was that helps fuel a little bit of the indie world, in the sense that because you go into the indie comics and suddenly we aren't bound by the same rules that the guys who work for the big companies are. If you go into an indie book, there's no telling what might happen. I think one of the reasons that Saga was so absolutely amazing, outside of the fact that Brian K. Vaughan is one of the greatest writers of all time.
Fiona Staples, don't count her out either.
Not by a long shot.
Don't count her out, because she is 50% of that book.
That's what I mean. Like it's a dream pairing. But you go into a book like that, and that was the first book in a long time I'd read where I'm like, I need the next volume to come out this minute. This is amazing. I have
the first copy signed and graded.
His writing is such a way that he can portray profane knowledge through the common man's tongue, which is insane to figure out how to do that. But that was a great story in the sense that I don't know what's going to happen next. My problem is I can read a lot of stuff and I can figure what's going to happen. Someone's going to try to murder me for this. The Mandalorian. I love The Mandalorian. Just so we're clear, I love that series. I think it's one of the greatest things of all time. I love Pedro Pascal. I love the writing. I love it. That being said, it is very predictable. Every moment can be predicted in that show. I'm not saying that's wrong, because there's a formula. If the formula works, why change it? If you're making cookies and you have a recipe for good cookies, why would you change the recipe for the good cookies? Don't. I get that. But if you go into the independent world, we can mix that formula up a little bit more because we aren't bound by the same infrastructure. And I think that platforms like Kickstarter and Indiegogo are what's enabling that, because a lot of people have great ideas, but the reality of it is it doesn't matter how good your ideas are. Almost nobody on earth is going to sit there and listen to you explain it, unless you have a proven track record. Like if Stephen King has a new idea, they're going to sit down and listen to him all day. But if you're just some guy off the street and you say, hey, I've got a really cool idea for a story, the reality of it is probably nobody's going to listen to you. You have to make them listen. And when I say that, I mean you have to figure out an outlet to create your thing that you want to create, to show them, to prove to them your idea is a great idea. And I think Kickstarter and Indiegogo are enabling that. That's part of the reason I think they're becoming so popular, is because there are a lot of people with really creative, brilliant ideas out there, and they may not have the means to create them by themselves. Like I'll use myself for an example. I have a ton of stories that are all ready to go. I can't draw a straight line. I learned how to do a child's drawing of a fox because I was requested to do that on books at conventions. And that took me like 3 months to figure out what I finally had to do. And it was in a damn children's video on YouTube and how to do it. I was like, yeah, there are 5-year-olds who can do this better than I can. I can't draw. So I had to go out of my way. I had to find people that could, and Kickstarter enabled me to have those people work with me. Because again, I love my artists, Mitsu, Neela, Sayako, Nelson, Antoinette. I love all my people that I work with immensely. They don't work for free, and I don't expect them to. I would never ask them to do that. That's something a lot of creators, I think, especially I see on the Facebook groups, they're trying to get artists to work for like exposure for free. And I'm like, dude, you can't, that doesn't work. You can't do that. I don't care if Steven Spielberg is offering exposure for his work. That's not enough. It doesn't matter. Everybody has bills to pay. And I think that's what's great about Kickstarter is it enables us to play in the real world. The real world has bills. The real world costs money. And I hate to say that M word. I really do, because it's not about that. It's about the passion. But the money is the fuel and the engine that is the passion.
I think though, I'm going to call you out a little bit on this, to be honest, because I think the second we deal with the money word and we say, hey, look, this is a business, all of a sudden we take that negativity out of it, meaning that I understand that this is a business. I understand the idea here that things cost money to do, and that, look, if you want cover X or you want art, you got to pay your artists, and there's nothing wrong with the money word. I don't view this as saying, I want to do this project because I think this project is cool, and I don't need to make $1 million off of it, but I need to have it sustainable. I need to make it so that this project, and if I make $300 on it in profit, that's okay. This isn't my pension plan. But at the same time, I need 10 grand to make this work. I think that there's a misconception here with all of this. And so I don't think money is negative. I need money at the moment, and I'm raising money through my job and other methods and selling comic books and things like that because I need money to make it happen. Now I'm anticipating that I'm going to turn a corner and that I'm going to get a nice rate of return. But I understand that there are things that need to happen. People I need to hire to do certain projects who need to be paid for their work. Now, do I expect somebody to say, hey, I need $10,000 to run your Facebook ads? That's a little different, where I'm working smart with my money and I'm paying people what they should be paid as far as what I view to be reasonable. But, I'm not paying somebody, if they were like a C-level executive. So it's I think it's just wrong to view it negative, because it's just the part of the business nobody wants to talk about because it's not the fun part. But I think if everybody started talking about it, it would just be like, oh, this is just part of the business.
That's all it is. And like you said, sustainability is the thing. You have to be able to sustain it. And there are people out there who can do everything themselves, all the art, all that themselves, and I'm envious of you that you can do that. But not everybody has been graced with that ability. And like you said, the Kickstarters and those are what enable us to have that sustainability. We just want to keep, like for me with Cremisi, I just want to tell, it's my passion project. The other books coming out are much more marketable, I would say would be the right term. Whereas Cremisi is just the story I want to tell. It's a main company like Image or Top Cow, they would probably never want it, just because of the fact that it's planned for about 14 books, which is long for an independent book. But it's just a story I want to tell, and being able to do everything on the side and do these Kickstarters allows me to sustain that. And part of that sustainability too is that people are happy from it. And that's what really matters. If we can sustain it and make everybody happy in the process, it's a win-win for everybody.
Yeah, I also think people are wrong about long-form content too. I'm the first person. I'm a very contrary person. I'm a contrary investor. I'm a contrary, when everybody is going left, I go right. When people are fearful, I tend to be greedy. And I think we're about to see a massive change, and I think the change has already started, that people want long-form content. I think people want long stories. I think omnibuses and omnibuses are going to be the next big thing in the comic world. And I think people are going to pay good money for it. I'm a big Zenescope fan. I dropped like $50 on a Wonderland omnibus that has 1,000 pages in it, and it's worth every single penny. I want to eat that. I want to read it, and I sit down and I legitimately have torn through half of it in 6 hours, because it was cheaper in the long run for me to buy all of that in one big thing. It was signed, which is cool, for free by the owner of the company, who was one of the writers on it. And then even going forward beyond that, I want to sit down and tear through it. And I want to read the entire thing. And then there's like 2 or 3 other books I need, and then I have the complete set. So I'm a strong believer that, and I think we're seeing it with Image and things like that too. And I think that a lot of people, I think, are going to start coming around to this. Like this, I want more of this because I have picked up indie books that are only 6 issues, and I'm like, well, I want more of this. I want more, and I want another 6 issues, and that to me, because I'm a content consumer, and I don't mind waiting, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years for it, because it's good for me because I could then afford it as well, where I'm piecemealing it out, and then if you shoot me an email saying, hey, it just came out, back it, I'm probably going to back it. So that's how I view it.
Some people like long. There's a difference between long and painfully long, though. Like one reason I couldn't watch One Piece, despite nothing against it, but I don't want to watch 1,000 episodes. In the exact same vein, growing up, Dragon Ball Z was one of my favorites. I tried to go back and watch that as an adult. I was like, I just don't want to sit through all these episodes.
Dragon Ball Kai is your answer. They solved your problem.
I'm gonna leave Z in the nostalgia banks where it's at. But then I can also read a manga like Berserk, which is one of the prettiest ones ever made, and know that it's never going to be done, because in the time it took one character to get off a boat, I went from being a child to a full-blown adult in the time between those two books coming out. So that's something that's going to happen. Or we can have other stories that are pretty long, and this is a more sad one, like High School of the Dead, which was a fantastic read. The writer passed away, so it's not ever going to have an end. Unfortunately, that's a risk we run when we do longer stories, is something could happen to the book, the writer, the company could go under. The company that made Gangsta, which was an amazing anime, it was so much fun, has a super abrupt ending out of nowhere because the studio went bankrupt. These things can happen, unfortunately, longer. A shorter story is safer, but I think if you have someone who can tell a good story, a longer one is fun. And I think some good examples of that today are some of the Batman runs are long, but they are just absolutely worth it, especially if they're done by Tom King. And to jump over to the anime world, I'm going to say My Hero Academia is long, but it's been a pretty good payoff for the length of the story. I've been very impressed with that one.
Attack on Titan is ending pretty much in the next 6 weeks or so.
That's what I heard.
And boy, is that one of the best payoffs in anime.
I can't believe it's still going on, like 6 years.
It's been a long run, but oof, that thing is going to be a massive payoff, and it's going to be beautiful how they've done it. But even going beyond all this, the other thing that I like about Cremisi as well is that I think there's nudity in this book, and it's uncensored in certain areas.
Minimal. So I've gotten a lot of questions because this time we have the one cover that's very raunchy.
We're going to talk about that too.
People ask me, is there a lot of raunchy stuff in the book? It's like, no. I don't allow anything you ever see that has this logo up here on the Isaac Fox logo on it. I will not allow full-blown pornography in my books. You will never see penetration. You're not going to see anybody slathered in fluids. I do not allow that to happen. You will see nudity akin to what you would see in an art museum. So it's there for you to appreciate, but it's tasteful. Exactly, it's tasteful. It's there to appreciate the form of the character, the beauty of the character.
It's not there for no good point.
Right. It's not like I'm just going to throw it in your face.
Let's talk about the other side of this, though, because you do have some more, I guess, X-rated covers on the flip side, and that's a whole new genre where a lot of people now, 3 years ago, were not doing that. Obviously, I'm a Zenescope fan, and they were one of the first companies to do that.
I'm pretty sure Zenescope's entire marketing strategy.
It's part of it.
I'm pretty sure they have a room with a marketing board on it that just has the word boobs written on it, and like, this is what we're doing. This is the marketing plan.
One of the co-owners was on my show, so I have a pretty good idea on what they're doing.
I'm not putting them down for it. I'm saying that what they figured out something that works, and they're going with what they found works, and that's some of their lead artists. I'm friends with Mike DeBalfo, Jamie Tyndall, Larry Watts. These are great guys, and their work is amazing. I love Mike. Mike, I keep teasing him because he came out with a series of the girl with the squirrel tail in her ears. I'm like, Mike, I know you stole that from me. I know you did. I know you looked at my girls and went, I want to do that. I know you did. Don't lie to me. Which is not true at all, of course, but just a playful poke at it. And there's nothing wrong with that. I am a firm believer that fan service is acceptable and good. And if it helps people and it makes people happy, that's good. I'm also a believer in equal opportunity fan service, which is why you will see that some of our pinups, we do have male characters. And when we go into the future of other books, we will have characters with sexy males on it. When we do the Naughty Swimsuit Edition book, there are pages in that book of male characters. I think everybody, regardless of what you're into, as long as it's legal, of course, deserves some nice visuals. I have nothing against that. I think it's a great idea.
So let's talk about it. How did you make the decision to do some awesome covers? I mean, you got the Trigun Maria cover, which is awesome. And I will say this, you have regular covers, you have, I guess, more naughty covers, you have some risque covers. And so there's something for everybody. I picked up, and I'm sure you saw my pledge, where I just picked up the Maria cover, and I didn't pick it up in the naughty position. It had nothing to do with money, because the price range was $5. It's the idea that I want to be able to share that on Instagram.
Yeah, absolutely.
And also, I'm not a big fan of, actually, that's not true. I do like nudity, but I also like to share comic books on Instagram. I like to share it on Twitter. I like to say, oh, I just got this book. It's really cool. And I can't do that with a naughty book, per se.
Yeah.
And so I do want to make that crystal clear that I think there is something for everybody here, because some people love nudity. They love that. They love going X-rated. And some people say, you know what is, I appreciate this art and I want to leave more to the imagination. I'm one of those people that I like to leave things more to the imagination versus actually seeing it. If that makes any sense. And I know people take pitch shots at me, and it's perfectly fine. I'm an adult. I can handle myself. You're more than welcome to make fun of me, everybody. But obviously, what was that like? Because obviously, it does expand your audience as far as who's backing. And this is a business. This is a business, everybody.
I keep in mind companies like Boundless exist for a reason. Well, mixed perceptions on them from a lot of people, but they do exist for a reason. In the case of what I wanted to do, and I actually just had a meeting yesterday with Artgerm Collectibles about this, is that we are doing more naughty covers. We are doing a lot of stuff like that. But I refuse to ever do just that. I have to have a couple of covers that you could put in the window of a store. I won't allow just full-blown naughties. Even on my book that comes out later this year, Suck You Busted, which is a story about sexy demon girls for the most part, I'm not going to allow it to be just in-your-face nudity. We have to have some of that for people who like that, and we have to have some people who just want a cool cover or a badass cover or even a homage cover. I have to have that for those people, because as I mentioned, our business is making people happy, and that could mean a plethora of things. It could mean a lot of stuff. If happiness is a girl not wearing a top, great. If happiness is a guy with no shirt, I got that for you. If happiness is this badass pose of a guy like punching the villain in the face, I got that for you. If happiness for you is just different character from a totally different story, just kind of hanging out, whatever. If it's a homage for something else you love, we can do that. That's really what it just kind of comes down to, is just catering to our audience to find what that everybody likes, to find out how we can make as many people happy as possible. And I think that this current campaign with Cremisi 1's Rebirth is doing a good job at that. And I can look at what covers are popular, what people are picking up. I know what's the most popular by a long shot. I know what everybody likes. We all know it. I can't say it here, but we all know what everybody likes. Might be the naughty stuff, might not be. But
and even to go off of that, you've also done some metal books as well. I don't know if this is the first one I'm doing that, but that's becoming big as well in the community, because metal books are cool. Obviously, people appreciate that type of stuff. And I think you get metal books on both naughty and nice covers. And so that's kind of cool, too, that that's now being offered as an option. Because depending on the book, I like metals as well.
That was another advice that I got from the Artgerm crew. Like, we need to do some metal covers. Like, I will offer a couple of, we have Ryan Kincaid. His cover is available as a virgin metal. Alan Quas is available as a metal, and Lyrics' covers are available as metals. I think here's the problem. when you do all this different stuff, everybody thinks you like, oh, what's this? And I'm like, I have to go check because I don't remember. I think the Sayako's Trigun homage is also in metal. I'm like 99% sure. Again, you're doing so much stuff. Sometimes it gets hard to remember everything you're doing. Like, I'm pretty sure I have that.
I know you have the trifecta for the Wolfwood as a medal. I know that. I know the Ryan Kincaid is a medal. I know.
Absolutely. Ryan is great. So I work pretty close with Ryan. He's a great guy. You want to learn. If you're an artist and you want to learn how to grow as an artist, that's the person you should be watching right now. Is Ryan Kincaid, because he is someone who took the horrible circumstances of COVID-19 and figured out how to operate within that and grow. Not only operate within it, but grow within it. And he did that. And I think his Kickstarter last I saw was at 13, 14K. So he's doing pretty good in his art book, which if you don't have it, you should get it because it's really great. His artwork is amazing. And if you like pretty ladies, he's another one you should keep an eye on because he's really good with pretty ladies.
Also, he does a lot of remarks and stuff like that on a bunch of books, and that if you get books from him, you have to get a remark on your book, because I know that he does some stuff for Dynamite, and he does a lot of remarks, and he's really cool in that regard as well. And so he's doing a lot of cool stuff out there. And also, he's involved in a lot of different people's Kickstarters, doing covers for them as well. Yes. So you could pick up a Ryan Kincaid pretty much. If you go through Kickstarter, at least 3 out of 10 have him involved in some capacity, I would say, at the moment. Super, super busy guy with stuff. And people might even have a bunch of his covers without even realizing they do, because he's one of those busy guys. So, and then obviously, I think it's Lyrics as well. And Lyrics, she's doing a bunch of stuff. She does a lot of stuff for Olympus.
She's doing a lot of stuff now. She works, she did stuff. What was her big one? She did one for Vampirella, which is a beautiful cover. She's doing a lot of stuff now to come out and really go out on her own, and she's probably one of the best I've ever worked with, easily. She's definitely one of the most giving of any I've ever worked with.
And so a lot of these covers, just to talk about this, I think a bunch of them are like $20 for the nice version, which is
not that bad.
And just to give a perspective, and I'm going to keep going back to Zenescope because their exclusives, their 350 print runs are $20. So a $20 variant cover by somebody who does work for a bunch of other, I don't want to say mainstream comic people, but more non-Kickstarter, I think is a better way how to say it, is not that bad. So you could pick up a really cool variant for $20. And then I don't know how much your naughty stuff goes for. Is it usually 25 or 30? In that
the knives are a little more. Some people don't know is that if you're the creator, you don't always get to dictate that. Sometimes the artist has some rule in it. I won't say anybody's names because I don't want to call anybody out or anything like that. But there are some artists who will say, hey, if you're doing this, this is how much you need to charge. And part of that can also be because some artists are angry that some Kickstarter creators are price gouging their fans. We do not do that. I do not do that to people. I will not price gouge you. I think the cheapest naughty is 25. That's the Maria one.
Yes.
After that, they go up to 30. And then from there, they can, depending on if you want a metal signed, then it goes up because the signing stuff a little bit more because most artists, this was a shocker when I first got into comics, was like half of the artists don't live in the United States. Half of them are overseas. So anything we get signed, like for Lyrics, I think she's in Indonesia. That's got to go over there. Alan Qua's in Malaysia. I have to ship to him for signings. Ryan Kincaid's here in the United States. He's easy to get to. But like if anybody wanted, like when Mitsu or Saako signed things, that's Denmark and Poland. So we kind of have to go. We have to go overseas and then come back to us. When I've worked with Eric Chen before, and I got his signs and remarks, I had to go to Tokyo and come back. And part of the reason I did not do like remarks over this campaign was because of the fact that the shipping industry right now has been decimated. Some countries, we had to deal with this last Kickstarter. We had to tell some of our backers, like, hey, we have your goods. I just can't get them to you. This happened with issue 4 because some countries went on lockdown and wouldn't allow packages in the United States to get into the country. I have your stuff. I just can't get it to you. It's not physically possible. unless I tie it to a raven and have him fly it to you, and I don't know how to do that. So that's the only way I could possibly do it. So that COVID's been probably the biggest challenge for every Kickstarter creator right now, delivering physical goods, because you have fans, people that use Kickstarter from all over the world. We've got people in Russia, Germany, Japan that will back our campaigns. And it's like, well, sometimes these countries go into lock, or sometimes COVID decides that, yeah, they can't have packages right now, which luckily is starting to back off. We are starting to see shipping come back to normal. And within the United States, we've seen some things. I think it was one of the companies I work with shipped some comics that was from Florida to Georgia, and it took like 4 weeks just to get that far, which on normal times is unheard of. But given the state of the world right now, it's difficult. But I think that the state of the world at the same time right now is important for comic creators. I think it's the perfect time to get out there and show what you can do. The reality of it is a lot of people are locked inside, and a lot of people right now especially are sad over everything going on, depressed, and we have a right to be. And I think that comics, especially the ones through Kickstarter and Indiegogo and those kind of platforms, can really help brighten somebody's day up, because you can get somebody a book that's new to them, that's got something they haven't seen before, and can help uplift people. And I think that's one of, I'm going to go as far as to say, as a Kickstarter person, that is your responsibility, is to do that for people, regardless of video game or whatever.
I also think that when Marvel and DC weren't producing anything for like 4 or 5 months during the entire Diamond thing, Kickstarter was producing a lot of content, and people getting out Kickstarters, and people were very excited for it. And I think it was a big deal. And it was the first time indie had a major hand up. And even I think to today, they still have a hand up to some degree, because people are saying, wait a second, you know, at any given time, DC and Marvel can now pull the plug. All these indie creators who print through a variety of independent publishers, you know, aren't beholden to that. Or if you print in-house, you're not beholden anymore to it. And so I think that's great on that level too. And I do want to mention, before we talk about Kickstarter, that you got a bunch of cool stretch goals coming. So
this campaign was never thought to be as successful as it's been. When I was planning it out with my team and my agent, I looked at the rewards and we planned the stretch goals out. Because this time we're like, well, we need to put them all up front. That's something we do from now on. All stretch goals will be up front. Well, all that we can imagine that we're going to hit. And that's what happened this time. I think we planned for like $7,000. Like, oh, it's like we did that. And I was like, well, I'm not going to make 7K, but we'll put it out there just so people know we were ready for it if it happens. And then it happened relatively quickly. And I'm looking at this going, I have to make new stretch goals, because I didn't anticipate this level of success. Even today, it's a good problem to have. But we just smashed the last stretch goal I just had last night, and I haven't had time to go in and announce the new one yet. I have to I'm about to have a meeting with my agent about what the next one has to be, to make sure that we can do it. It's just all this new stuff that are able to add, which is great, I think, because now more people, if you back Cremisi, you're getting so much free stuff now. You're getting art prints, naughty and nice. You're getting prints of some of the covers, naughty and nice, that are virgin. You're getting a magnet. You're getting a sticker. You're getting some exclusive stuff. You're getting some debut material. We have a lot of new mascot characters that are debuting through this. It's all these things now that our backers are getting for free, thanks to their backing us and supporting what I'm doing. And we're so excited for that. I don't have enough words to express how grateful I am to anyone who's backed my project, who has given me their time, and even more valuable than your time, your money. They've done that, and I will do everything I can, as always, to get them what they've paid for, what they've done. I'm happy to say that our track record on Kickstarter is I've always delivered what was requested. I get special requests sometimes, and some people will message me and ask, hey, this tier isn't available. Anything I can do about that? I'll make a new tier for you. If that's if you're looking for something I don't have and I can get it for you, I'll make a new tier for it. Whatever you want, no problem. The only thing that we're struggling with right now a little bit is the digital stuff can be kind of tricky. And I understand we have a lot of backers that are overseas that can't pay that exorbitant shipping price, which I do apologize for the shipping price, but that's not me. That's shipping. So we work to create also stuff that the digital backers can get. Like our first one's that Valentine's Day thank you image. They're going to get that. We've given out wallpapers before, a lot of stuff we can create for you. And we're doing all of that to try to bring more value to our backer. Every individual backer should be given more value, because the reality of it is, if you back a Kickstarter, in our eyes, you're a hero. You're making everything we do worth it, and you are making my dreams come true. So anything I can do for my backers, I will gladly do.
Yeah, no, I think that's the way it is, and I think it's going to pay off in customer acquisition costs, especially when you go forward with your next two books. Do obviously Rebirth 2 for Cremisi as well, and that, you know, if you give somebody on their first run an amazing experience, they're going to come back again. Or even if you go into a store for the first time and you're treated really well, you know, have a whole positive image of doing business. You know, I've never backed your Kickstarter before, and obviously I just backed a little while ago, maybe a few days ago, and obviously when I get all this stuff, I'm going to have a much more positive experience. And so when Cremisi Rebirth 2 comes out, I am more now likely to go and buy and back that project again. And now that customer acquisition cost is not going to be as high for you to get me to back again, and I'm not the only one who thinks that way. So I think that's something that's super important that creators can learn. But having said all that, I'm curious about Kickstarter, because obviously we spoke a lot about Kickstarter here, where there's a lot of stuff going on with Kickstarter. And Kickstarter has changed dramatically with the idea that obviously big names have come in and Kickstarter's platform has expanded, which is great for Kickstarter because it's not just comics, but obviously
everything. Almost anything, with the exception of, I don't think they allow anything of an explicitly adult nature.
Or healthcare.
Healthcare or charity. You can't do charity stuff. But we did look into, we wanted to do a cover where we could raise some money for animal shelters or some animal organizations, and Kickstarter said, no, you can't do that. So okay, that's fine. We'll find another means to do that. But that's just their rules. People who have asked before what Kickstarter like. It's like, well, imagine you're a hot dog vendor on a street. Kickstarter owns the street, so it's their street, their rules. I don't have a massive problem with them. I mean, I'm sure everybody on there could nitpick at some things they don't like. My biggest complaint for Kickstarter is I didn't think of it, because at this point, I don't know what they really do outside of just make money. I mean, it's the most amazing idea ever. You create a website that everybody else gets to put money, everybody else gets to buy things from, but you get a cut every time. Like, that is genius. I'm not mad at them. I'm mad that I didn't think of it first.
So yeah, so even going off of that though, we spoke about how Kickstarter has changed and evolved. I guess my question is that, how do you feel about all the big names coming in? How do you feel about that affecting comics? And what is your entire take on it? Because my position is, and we're going to get into some controversy here, is that I think it's brilliant and I think it's amazing and I think that it's overall good for the platform, but it does present a series of problems where, you know, now all the big names and big houses coming in, it's kind of like the house that Indy has built. So I'm curious how you feel.
Like, I mean, one of the biggest ones on there was the Power Rangers collection. It was like $720,000 they got. It's like, well, no kidding, it's Power Rangers. It's officially licensed. Like, no duh, made a lot of money. There's definitely some, I don't know how everybody feels about it. I haven't had a chance to talk to everybody. And just a heads up, I do got to go in a few minutes. I'm afraid, sorry. Just getting in the afternoon, and I have more meetings I have to get to, of course. And welcome to the joy of running a Kickstarter in a company and a comic. You spend most of your time in meetings. But there's definitely, I can't speak for other creators out there, but I will say I don't want to see DC or Marvel or Image on Kickstarter. I don't want to see them there. Not because I have anything against those companies or any animosity towards them whatsoever. I love them all. The reason being, they already have their outlets. They have substantial marketing budgets. They have massive studios behind them. Marvel's being backed by Disney, the absolute media giant of the planet. Warner Brothers is behind DC, and Warner Brothers is a monster. Image is their own thing. Image I'd excuse a little bit more because Image is considered an independent still and all that. But Image has still got access to all of the mainstream market ways and paths that those of us in the indie world don't. Those of us that are just making a comic out of our garage, we don't have easy access to Diamond and all these other guys that they do. I can't just, I can if I wanted, if I was able to write the sizable check, but in order to get my book in every store in America like they can, we can't just do that. So I kind of don't like them being there. I kind of don't want them there. I think it's better for it to be independent creators. The problem with that becomes, how do you draw that line? How would you enforce that? And is it even fair to do so? And it is and it isn't. So I'm not the person who gets to make that call. I know that if DC puts something on Kickstarter, Indiegogo, I won't back it. And that's not because I don't like DC. I 100% love DC's characters. I mean, obviously. But I would rather take that same amount of money I would have given to that company and find some guy who works a 9 to 5, who, you know, he's got his kids and he's working on his comic on the side because it's his passion and he wants to do it. I would rather give my money to that guy and see his dream come true. Because that, what it's going to come down to is that money means more to him. Because if I give that 50 bucks, $100 to just, you know, John Smith sitting there at his desk after he got off work, that money is going to do way more for him than it's going to do for Mr. Executive at DC. No offense, Mr. Executive. I'm sure you're a great guy. But in this case, I want to help the little guy. I think as an independent and small business owner, I want to help small businesses and I want to help the little guy out.
So I think the best way to put it is that it is a double-edged sword, because it is a moral question, ethics question on who gets to police this entire concept, who gets to say, hey, you can play here, you can't, and then all of a sudden what happens if like a Brian Pulido or a Keanu Reeves raises, you know, $1 million? Are they now banned too? It's super complicated. I think that that's the overall consensus, is that, well, you know, it is, and what I've been saying is that we opened up Pandora's box and we don't know the effects it's going to have until the next 2 years when this sort of all plays out. And I'm sure that at some point when I have you back on, we're going to be re-examining this entire discussion. But I do want to give you an opportunity to promote yourself, because we've been speaking for a little under an hour and a half now. I know you got some meetings to attend to, but where can people, find you on social media? Where can people check out your social media, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook pages? Obviously, the Kickstarter, super important. We got how many days left? Just so everybody gets an idea when to back.
Again, you think you have all this memorized, and I don't, because there's just, you're doing so much stuff. Please work, thank you. I have 13 days left. There are 13 days remaining in the campaign for everybody to get what they want. Some stuff has sold out. We did announce a new add-on yesterday that's very special. It's kind of a backers appreciation add-on that they can get. It's limited to 10. I think right now there's 5. I have 5 marked as left, and I have messages in my inbox right now getting it. So there's less than 5 left. And what that cover is going to be is, if you choose to add that on, we will create a poll for you, and you get to vote on what character from Cremisi you want on a cover. And then we will take a list where, okay, here's a list of characters that, say they choose Alice right here. So it's an easy go-to. And then we'll create a list of characters from famous anime and comics that Alice could cosplay as. And then those people who pick that add-on get to vote that. And finally, they'll get to vote if they want to be a naughty or nice cover. I will let them have that decision entirely. I think I know what they're going to choose, but I will let them have that decision. And from there, Mitsu will create that cover. There'll only be 10 of it. I don't even get one. It's going to go just to those 10 people, and they're going to get it. And that'll be that one special thing that they can have that's unique to just those 10 individuals, because we want to create more appreciative items for the backers. Any of my social media is all Isaac Fox Comics and Art. Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, the 3 I use the most. You can find us on Kickstarter for Astral Ticket. That's the publishing company, which I found out on Kickstarter you can't change your name. I tried to change it to Isaac Fox, and it actually won't let you do it. I was like, oh no. That's the publishing company. You can also find a lot of my stuff with Comic Con Line. That is, those guys are part of the Art Germ crew. You can find them and all kinds of stuff they do over there, including a lot of exclusive stuff you can get from like Alan Kwa, Eric Chen, guys like that. Big name people you want to keep an eye on. That's where you can find everything I do. Website, I have been requested for many times. The website is under construction. I should have done this years ago, and I just didn't have time, and I didn't have the money to go into it. And thankfully, from this campaign and from issue 4s, we have someone to do the website, and it's being started up. And once that's up, you will be able to order books from the site. You'll be able to order art prints that are not just Isaac Fox products. They're also art from the artists who work with me. So Mitsu, Sayako, all those people that make these amazing artworks, you can get their stuff from there too. We'll handle all of that for you. We'll get you some extra stuff. There will be website exclusives. The only thing that you probably won't get much of on the website are going to be a lot of the nudie covers. We'll have events. We'll have red light specials, red light district, where you can get those, but they aren't going to be a normal thing, just because I don't want my website to show up when somebody looks for hentai on the internet. So I don't want that. I don't want that association, unless somebody says, "Hey, here's $1 million. We want you to do it." In that case, sure, why not? But up until that point, I don't want that association.
I understand. So on that note, obviously there's a lot of information that people can go find you, follow, check out what you're doing. Obviously, everybody back to Kickstarter, I think, is the best position for me to cue people in and shepherd them into the right side of history here. But I've been saying this with everybody, is that you have to support indie, and that means you have to support indie comic creators, indie artists, indie people doing indie projects. And the best way how to support indie is financially. So if you got an extra 10 bucks, 20 bucks, 30 bucks, 40 bucks, and you're economically stable, and I get it, COVID is a very rough time for a lot of people. A lot of people are hurting right now. You absolutely have to support economically. And if you got the extra money, please consider, it's not a donation because you're actually getting a product, but consider backing and quote unquote buying something on Kickstarter, because that's how I view it. If you are in an economic hard time, please take care of your family first. Make sure your mortgage, your rent, your electricity's on, your water's on, you got food on the table, your kids are okay, your wife's okay, your husband's okay, your spouse, your partner, your dog's doing fine. Make sure all of that is stable in your life. And also make sure that you have money for the next month as well, because nobody knows what's going to happen in the next 3 to 4 months. It looks like we're moving in the positive direction, but make sure that you are financially stable. And if that's the case, then absolutely follow on social media, because Facebook pages count, Twitter counts, Instagram counts, not only because it helps to boost up algorithm, but also you will become informed. And also commenting is super helpful as well, because that also changes in sharing, because you have 15 friends who are into comics. They might have never heard of Cremisi, but then if you share the Kickstarter, someone's like, "Oh, what is this?" Say, "Oh man, I really like this," and then that's super effective too. So that's something that is crucial to do, is sharing, commenting, even liking or giving a heart on Facebook makes the difference. It might not seem like it, doesn't cost you a penny. So please, everybody do that. It is ultra important. And on that note, I'm going to give you the final word before you have to make your exit to go deal with some.
I'm trying to pull me into a meeting right now about what we're going to do with this next stretch goal. Like you said, alleviating the hurt. That's what, if anybody out there is a creator, I think that's part of our job. It doesn't really matter what you're creating. Part of your job is to help alleviate some of that. And I think if we can bring some of that joy to people in any possible capacity, then good. That's what we should be doing. That's what I'm trying to do, is alleviate some of that and help people do. I want to do for somebody what Toonami and Outlaw Starlos did for me as a kid. If I can do that for somebody else, then we're doing our job right. And I want to do that by bringing a quality product to my backers as fast and as beautifully as I possibly can. And I think on issue 1 here, you're going to get that, and you're going to look at these rewards we have and the stretch goals we have, and you're going to know that I can bring that to you, and I'm going to continue doing that. And you can look forward to that with Cremisi issue 1. And then in a couple of months, Pure Intent, which will come out, which takes place in the Cremisi universe, a full color book, by the way, done in a more classic style, kind of like Yu Yu Hakusho. And then later on in this year, Suck You Busted, again, full color with a absolute plethora of fan service and comedy for you to enjoy, taking place in Jacksonville, Florida. So if you've ever been to Jacksonville, you'll, anyone's ever been there can know there's a great deal of humor that can be poked at my city. So let's have some fun with that. And I hope to bring you guys more fun. And I can't wait to see you guys on the campaign and in the future books. Thank you for your support.